headlines. The 3-week International Telecommunications Union Conference kicks off Monday in Korea's Busan. Korean President Park calls for global efforts to bridge the digital divide. Korea plans to send an advance team of government officials to Ebola-hit West African countries early next month to support global efforts to fight the virus. The crisis in Hong Kong deepens after weekend clashes. Pro-democracy protesters deny the chief executive's allegations of them being influenced by external forces. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the show. Coming to you live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. The highest decision-making body for communications technologies, the ITU Plenipotentiary, began its big conference in Busan on this Monday. This year's conference aims to narrow the information gap and bridge the digital divide. ARIRANG's Song Ji-sun sends this report from Busan.
Connect 2020 is the vision for the ITU heading into this year's conference. It's a vision that highlights the role of information and communication technologies as a key enabler for social, economic, and environmentally sustainable growth and development. The ITU is the UN's oldest international organization and started out setting standards for telegraph services. Today, it embraces issues ranging from cybersecurity and climate change to expanding internet access for the less privileged.
ICTs are, in short, among the keys to achieving sustainable development. As we shape a new development agenda and strive for a new agreement on climate change, let us continue to work together to harness the power of technology to create an accessible and sustainable future for all.
As the host of this year's Plenipotentiary and one of the world's leading ICT countries, Korea hopes to contribute to helping other countries achieve sustainable growth by sharing its experience.
We wish to come up with solutions at an ITU level that include everyone, especially by improving infrastructure in developing countries. Above all, it is crucial to share our ICT policy experience for shared growth and mutual understanding.
The first plenary session followed on Monday, with Korea chairing the meeting as host. Equal access to the internet and sustainable growth were once again stressed as this year's keywords. To that end, this year's Plenipotentiary will also serve as an open venue to build ties outside scheduled events. From this Monday, bilateral and multilateral talks seeking cooperation in the ICT sector will be held throughout the 3-week conference between the 3,000 delegates from the 193 member countries. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News, Busan.
And also at the global conference was Korean President Park Geun-hye. She promised Korea's contributions to providing better ICT access to the marginalized and boosting security against cyber threats. Choi Yoo-sun tells us more.
In an age of superconnectivity, telecommunications and new ICT-based industries are continuously changing the ways in which we live. Addressing this year's International Telecommunication Union Conference in Korea's southeastern city of Busan, President Park Geun-hye said the rapidly developing environment poses new challenges to the world. The Korean president first referred to a widening information and communications gap between countries and regions, saying only 3 out of 10 people have internet access in the developing world, compared to nearly 8 out of 10 in advanced nations.
앞으로 전기통신과 ICT가 지역과 국가, 성별과 계층을 뛰어넘어 모든 인류의 인권 향상과 복지 증진을 위한 기술이 될 수 있도록 국제사회가 정보통신 격차 해소를 위해 적극 나설 것을 제안합니다.
President Park then talked about the need to bolster the response system against cyber threats and to systematically ensure the safety of new convergence industries and services. The Korean leader used the opportunity to promote her government's efforts to start a creative economy that converges IT with other sectors to innovate, spur growth, and create new jobs.
저는 이러한 초고속 네트워크 기반 위에서 우리 경제의 패러다임을 추격형에서 선도형으로 전환하기 위한 창조 경제 전략을 추진하고 있습니다.
Endorsing the ITU vision of ICT growth, inclusiveness, sustainability, and innovation, President Park vowed Korea will do its part by sharing its own know-how with the marginalized in society and developing countries. 최유선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea is joining in on the global fight against the Ebola epidemic. In the coming weeks, Korea will be sending an advance team of officials to West Africa who will set the stage eventually for future teams of medics. Shin Se-min reports.
A support team of 6 to 7 Koreans will be sent to 2 West African nations in early November as part of global efforts to stop the spread of Ebola. The Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Health and Defense said in a briefing Monday that they will send an advance team of people from the 3 government agencies to review safety plans for dispatching future support teams. The government is still reviewing which countries they will be sent to, but Sierra Leone and Liberia are said to be the most likely destinations. They also add that the safety of the medics will be the highest priority and that consultations with countries that have already sent support teams such as the US, UK, and Germany were held. In addition to the manpower, Korea has also pledged $15 million in the global fight against Ebola. The worldwide death toll in the Ebola outbreak has surpassed 4,500, yet there are some positive developments. A Spanish nurse who was the first person to contract Ebola outside of West Africa has tested negative for the virus and is now confirmed free of the disease. And in the U.S., 48 people who came into contact with an Ebola patient in Texas have been taken off the Ebola watch list after showing no signs of the virus. Shin Se-min, 아리랑 뉴스.
Moving on to inter-Korean affairs, North Korea still hasn't answered to South Korea's proposal for high-level talks. Instead, the two Koreas engaged in yet another cross-border shootout over the weekend. And some say this could all be a carefully calculated move by North Korea. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Another shootout across the inter-Korean border has further heightened military tensions on the Korean peninsula. On Sunday, the two Koreas traded fire after 10 North Korean soldiers were seen approaching the military demarcation line near the border city of Paju. This comes just 9 days after North Korea fired machine guns at South Korean balloons carrying anti-Pyongyang leaflets.
Provocations could be aimed at banning the controversial leaflets or at getting South Korea to be less forceful on the North Korean human rights issue at the United Nations on October 28th.
North Korea has yet to respond to South Korea's proposal to hold a second round of high-level talks next Thursday. Experts say the North may be attempting to set the agenda for the planned meeting through the series of shootouts.
North Korea seems to be escalating military tensions to protest South Korea's recent countermeasures and to build up a pretext for discussions on the rules of engagement in the West Sea and the DMZ.
North Korea is expected to seek discussions on preventing future clashes at the maritime border, ending cross-border slandering, and lifting South Korean sanctions. A key issue for South Korea will be holding reunions for war-separated families. As the two Koreas remain largely divided on what they hope to bring to the negotiating table, making progress in just one round of talks could be a challenge. Hwang Sung-hee, 아리랑 뉴스.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to... Some industries that have kept the Korean economy moving forward may be starting to lose their competitive edge. And this is raising questions about how Korea can change its economic structure to ensure sustainable growth. Kim Ji-yeon has this report.
Korean firms that ply their trade in the industrial sector are calling for more deregulation to improve business conditions. To achieve that, the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry submitted a proposal to the government on Monday.
The Korean economy is currently stagnant and is in need of structural reforms through deregulation. there's a decline in demand due to the maturity of the market, while cheaper goods are being produced in neighboring countries like China and Japan.
The calls are perhaps loudest from those involved in the mobile phone, shipbuilding, and automobile sectors. They have positioned themselves as three of the so-called pillars of the Korean economy, but are now seeing their dominance diminish as the rates of increase in sales and operating profits are on a sharp decline. In a survey of 176 local companies, the rate of increase in sales among smartphone companies show a steep decline, recording a more than a 9% drop in the first half of this year. The shipbuilding industry finds itself in a similar position. Some, like Hyundai Heavy Industries and Samsung Heavy Industries, even recorded operating losses in the first 6 months of the year. Of the three, the auto sector appears to be faring the best, but sales are starting to sputter as the rate of increase in sales came to 1.5% in the first half of this year. The Park Geun-hye administration has been calling for deregulatory moves in the industrial sector, but its efforts are being stifled by the rising number of regulations from municipal governments and passive behaviors of civil servants when granting approval for business licensing. Kim Jeon, ARIRANG News.
In line with the government's push to encourage more active foreign investment, Korea's Prime Minister has pledged to improve business conditions so that foreign companies and local firms can grow together. Chung Hong-won's comments came today during a meeting with over 20 heads of foreign firms, including Mercedes-Benz and Intel. The Prime Minister said foreign firms are one of the major pillars of the Korean economy as they contribute to 20% of Korea's total exports and 6% of total employment. The weak Japanese yen is hurting Korean firms operating in Japan as well. More than 80% of some 60 Korean companies in Japan say the weak yen was having a negative impact on their businesses. This was shown in a recent survey conducted by the Korea International Trade Association. The respondents added the situation was leading to conflicts with clients over unit prices and a drop in orders as well. A Korean venture company has filed for an injunction against Apple that would potentially ban sales of iPhone products in Korea. Mobile messenger company InfoZone claims that Apple's iMessage function infringes on its patent. Apple has included this feature, which allows users to send free text messages to one another on its iPhones and iPads since 2011. InfoZone says it notified Apple Korea about this infringement in May, but received no response. If and when the two Koreas become a unified Korea again, the economic potential stands to be quite great. Seoul's Unification Preparatory Committee forecast that the gross domestic product per capita for a unified Korea would rank second among G20 countries by the year 2050 at an estimated $73,000, trading only the United States. That's about $10,000 higher than what the figure would be for a still divided South Korea. The committee did note, though, that the economic boost would only be possible if unification occurred peacefully and if North Korea adopts a market economy. Siding Spring is the name of the comet that passed by Mars early Monday morning Korea time. It was the closest planetary approach by a comet in human history. And experts say it may have provided a chance to unlock some of the mysteries about Mars and our solar system. Connie Kim has this story.
It's being called a once-in-a-million space event. Hurtling at 56 kilometers per second, the mountain-sized Siding Spring comet made its closest encounter to Mars at 3:27 a.m. Monday, Korea time. It traveled as close as 140,000 kilometers to the red planet, or just about one-third the distance between the Earth and Moon. To prevent possible damage to its Mars orbiters, NASA moved them to the other side of the planet. NASA's Near-Earth Object Program Office says a speck of space dust no bigger than 0.5 millimeter in size, traveling at 56 kilometers per second, would cause significant damage to one of these spacecrafts. But satellites in the area will be studying the comet, including its gas and dust shroud and the material that trails behind it. Using that data, scientists hope to gain a better understanding of Mars, including more about the planet's weather patterns and its atmosphere. And as the icy comet is believed to be the frozen remnants from the formation of the solar system, scientists also hope they'll get a peek 4.5 billion years into the past at the origins of the solar system. It's taken Siding Spring 1 million years to make its way to Mars, truly making this a unique opportunity for science. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong have lashed out at the city's chief executive as they are denying allegations of them being influenced by foreign external powers. And for more, Paul is joining us. These demonstrations have been going on for the past 3 weeks or so. So what's this latest issue of contention for this movement?
Well, tensions soared on Sunday when Hong Kong's chief executive Leung accused, quote, external forces of playing a role in the pro-democracy movement that has gripped the city for 23 days now. Student activist leaders have slammed the comments as irresponsible and that the claims are baseless, pointing to the fact that Leung had only cited unnamed sources from Beijing. Over the weekend, the standoff between police and protesters turned violent in the Mong Kok area after demonstrators retook parts of the district. Police used pepper spray and batons to control the crowds, and at least 20 people were reported injured. The deepening crisis comes ahead of talks between the Hong Kong government and student leaders on Tuesday.
And staying with China, Paul, hundreds of top leaders there from the Communist Party have opened a key meeting in Beijing. Authorities there announced earlier that the main theme for this meeting would be the rule of law. Are we going to find any language regarding what's happening in Hong Kong? What's going to be at the top of this agenda?
Well, the meeting known as the Fourth Plenum kicked off today, and as you said, the country's legal system is expected to be under intense scrutiny. Experts are looking for judicial as well as economic reforms that will guide Chinese society in the coming years. Our Son Jung-in has more.
This is the fourth plenum since Chinese President Xi Jinping took office. Elite members of the Chinese Communist Party begin a 4-day policy-setting meeting in Beijing on Monday, seeking to establish a platform for judicial and other reforms. Unlike previous meetings where the items on the agenda centered on issues related to the country's economy, this will be the first time that the party will focus on the rule of law. This is key to realizing Beijing's goal of promoting the modernization of China's governing system and capabilities. It is also expected to institutionalize Xi Jinping's long drive to tackle corruption by introducing a new anti-corruption office. The fate of former National Security Chief Zhou Yongkang, the first member of the party's Politburo Standing Committee to be detained for corruption, will also be a key development to watch during the meeting. There is speculation the leadership will make an example of him to show its determination to implement the rule of law. All eyes are also on what kind of measures the plenum will come up with to deal with the ongoing unrest in Hong Kong.
The protests may be drawn out for a long time and turn more bloody. So the Chinese government needs to figure out some countermeasures.
Other items to be discussed during the plenum include economic reforms such as provincial government's debt and rural land trade regulation. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
And turning to the Middle East, the U.S. military has carried crucial airdrops of supplies to Kurdish forces there battling Islamic State militants near the Syrian town of Kobani. This is the first delivery of its kind in more than a month. Fill us in on the current situation on the ground.
Well, the town on the Turkish-Syrian border was reportedly calmer on Monday, as both sides are expected to regroup and resupply after weeks of fierce fighting. The U.S. Central Command said it had delivered weapons, ammunition, and medical supplies to the Kurdish fighters, who are trying to stave off an advance by IS forces in the region. Amidst the fighting, the UN humanitarian chief Valerie Amos visited Sunday a refugee camp on the Turkish side of the border where thousands of Syrian refugees have fled from the violence.
Here in this school, we have over 5,000 people, half of them children living in a situation where they're being supported by UNHCR, by the World Food Programme, by UNICEF, AFAD and other partners that have come together, recognizing that the children need psychosocial support, people need to be housed and sheltered, and that this is a transition to a more settled camp situation.
The United Nations estimates more than 250,000 residents from Kobani have been displaced due to the intense fighting over the past weeks. Turkey says it is already hosting 1.3 million Syrian refugees, and officials predict the relief efforts has so far cost the government more than $3 billion.
And shifting back to Asia, Paul, Indonesia has a new president. Joko Widodo was sworn in today as the country's leader on this Monday. This is a significant moment for the world's, third largest democracy. Give us the details.
Well, there was plenty of pomp and circumstance as Widodo was inaugurated as Indonesia's 7th president today. The 53-year-old took the oath in front of hundreds of members of parliament, as well as top foreign delegations. International leaders attended the ceremony, including U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, as well as heads of state from Singapore and Malaysia. Widodo had won a narrow victory in July's election, marking a watershed moment in the country's first leader, as he is the country's first leader, not from the political or military elite. Though untested on the national and international stages, the former governor of Jakarta vowed to bring about a brighter future for his people.
The government I lead will work hard to make sure every citizen in our country can be served by us. I also call out to all institutions to unite and be responsible to their correspondent task.
Political watchers, however, say Widodo still faces enormous challenges ahead during his 5-year term, among them being fierce opposition in parliament regarding his economic and political reform drive.
And finally, 2 of Japan's leading female political figures have stepped down in the wake of a series of political scandals. This is going to be not good for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's administration, obviously. What's the story behind these 2 political heavyweights?
Well, Justice Minister Midori Matsushima resigned on Monday after the Japanese opposition Democratic Party had filed a criminal complaint accusing her of violating election laws by distributing paper fans to voters. During a press conference, Matsushima said she didn't believe she had done anything wrong, but decided her resignation would be in the best interest for national politics. Just hours earlier, Yoko Obuchi also stepped down as Trade and Industry Minister amid allegations that her support groups misused political funds. She apologized for the scandal and vowed to jumpstart her political career from square one.
I would like to deeply apologize from the bottom of my heart that I was not able to contribute at all to any of the wide range of problems that I was given. Having economic or energy policy slowed down by my problems is not something that can be allowed.
The 2 ministers were among the 5 women appointed by Abe in a cabinet reshuffle less than 2 months ago, a move that was intended to boost his popularity and show his commitment to promoting women as part of his strategy to revive the economy. Charity?
I see. Thank you so much for those stories, Paul E. there from the News Center, and he will be back with us in just about 2 hours.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the weather updates. We got off to a rainy start to the week here in Korea. Now things have cleared up for most parts of the central regions, but showers remain down south. A heads up as heavy rainfall will resume in most parts of the country from later tonight through tomorrow, which could be accompanied by stormy conditions. Expect over 120 millimeters for southern areas where a pre-heavy rainfall watch has been issued, and up to 100 millimeters along the southern coast. It looks like this round of showers will cool down temperatures, and otherwise typical late autumn weather is forecast to return towards the end of the week. On to the readings. Seoul remains relatively low at 16, Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan 21. On to other regions. Daejeon and Dokdo reach 18, Mount Kumgang hits 8. Make sure to have an umbrella with you when headed out. That's all I have for you now, and we leave you with the international weather.
And that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.